What would you do if your own family became your worst nightmare? Dubai. A city where gold flows like water and skyscrapers touch the clouds. Where royalty lives in palaces that cost more than most countries' annual budgets. But what if I told you that behind one of those marble walls, a princess was buried alive for 6 years? Not murdered. Not kidnapped by strangers. But imprisoned by the very people who were supposed to protect her. Have you ever felt trapped by your own family's expectations? Have you ever been silenced when you tried to speak your truth? Well, today's story will make you question everything you think you know about family loyalty and the price of defiance. When firefighters broke down what they thought was an industrial freezer in a luxury villa on Palm Jumeirah, they expected to find frozen meat. Instead, they found Sheikha Noura bint Khalid al-Hamdan, a royal woman who had been declared missing for 6 years. She weighed barely 40 kilograms, her skin pale as paper, whispering the same words over and over, "Please, don't send me back." But here's what will shake you to your core: her disappearance wasn't random. It wasn't a kidnapping gone wrong. It was a calculated move by her own father to keep her silent about secrets that could destroy his empire. Before we go deeper into this chilling tale of family betrayal and survival, I need you to do something. If stories like this matter to you, if you believe the voiceless deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button right now. Because every subscription tells YouTube that real stories matter more than mindless entertainment. And if you don't subscribe, you're essentially telling me that stories of survival and injustice aren't worth your time. So what's it going to be? Now, let me take you back to 2016, when a rebellious princess made a choice that would cost her 6 years of her life. This isn't just a story about wealth and power. This is about what happens when you dare to challenge the people who control your world. This is about the price of truth in a family built on lies. And I promise you, by the end of this story, you'll never look at family dynamics the same way again. Are you ready to discover how a woman survived 6 years in a box, forgotten by the world but never forgetting herself? Because what you're about to hear will change everything you think you know about the power of human resilience. Sheikha Noura bint Khalid al-Hamdan wasn't your typical royal. While other women in her circle accepted arranged marriages and quiet compliance, Noura had different plans. Born into one of Dubai's most influential families, she grew up surrounded by luxury most people can only dream of. Private jets, designer clothes, access to the world's elite. But wealth came with chains, invisible ones that tightened around her throat every day. Her father, Khalid al-Hamdan, controlled shipping routes across the Persian Gulf. To the outside world, he was a successful businessman and philanthropist. Inside their family compound, he was a tyrant who demanded absolute obedience. Noura had 2 strikes against her in her father's eyes. First, she refused every arranged marriage proposal. While her female cousins quietly accepted their matches, Noura would laugh in the faces of potential suitors. "I'd rather die alone than live as someone's property," she told her closest friend. Second, and far more dangerous, Noura had been documenting her father's business dealings. She discovered something that could destroy not just Khalid's reputation, but his entire empire. Financial records showing connections to arms dealers moving weapons through Yemen. Digital evidence of money laundering operations that stretched from Dubai to Tehran. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever discovered something about your family that you weren't supposed to know? Something that changed how you saw them forever? Now multiply that by 1,000, and you'll start to understand Noura's position. She wasn't just holding family secrets. She was holding evidence that could land her father in international prison. The tension in their household became suffocating. Khalid's demands grew more aggressive. He wanted Noura married off to a political ally in Saudi Arabia, a man 30 years older who already had 3 wives. The marriage would strengthen Khalid's business connections and, more importantly, remove Noura from Dubai permanently. But Noura had been planning her own escape route. She had been secretly copying financial documents, building a case that would expose her father's criminal network. Her plan was simple: disappear to Europe, contact international authorities, and bring down the empire built on blood money. What she didn't realize was that Khalid had been watching her every move. Every document she copied, every secret meeting with potential informants, every plan she made, he knew about it all. The question you should be asking yourself right now is, what would you do if speaking the truth could save lives but destroy your family? Would you stay silent to keep the peace, or would you risk everything for justice? Noura made her choice. And it nearly cost her everything. July 15, 2016. The date that would change everything. Noura attended what would be her final public appearance, a charity gala at the Atlantis Hotel. She moved through the crowd with practiced elegance, shaking hands, posing for photos, playing the perfect princess role one last time. But this wasn't just a social appearance. Noura had arranged to meet with a contact from the International Criminal Court. Hidden in her designer purse was a flash drive containing 5 years of financial records, shipping manifests, and communication logs that could expose her father's arms dealing operation. The meeting never happened. As Noura excused herself from the main ballroom, 2 of her father's security guards approached her. "Your father requests your immediate presence at home," one of them said quietly. It wasn't a request. The car ride back to the family compound was silent. Noura knew she was walking into a trap, but she had no choice. Her father's reach extended throughout Dubai's power structure. There was nowhere to run that he couldn't find her. What happened in Khalid's private office that night would haunt investigators years later. Neighbors reported hearing shouting, then nothing. The official family story was simple: Noura had decided to travel abroad for an extended vacation. Her social media accounts were scrubbed clean. Her car was parked in the compound garage. Her room was left exactly as it was. But here's what the family didn't announce. 3 days before her disappearance, Noura had confided in her childhood friend Amira with words that would become prophetic: "If I vanish, they will tell you I chose silence. But you should know, I was silenced." Amira later testified that she tried to contact authorities, but was told that wealthy families often handle their internal matters privately. No missing person report was ever filed. Dubai's police were quietly informed that Noura was taking time away from the public eye. This is where the story becomes truly horrifying. Instead of killing his daughter outright, Khalid chose a different form of murder. He decided to make her disappear while keeping her alive, trapped, isolated, and completely under his control. Working with his loyal business associate Yasser Al-Mabrouk, Khalid had been preparing for this possibility for months. The basement of Yasser's Palm Jumeirah villa had been converted into something that would make your skin crawl, a sophisticated prison disguised as an industrial freezer. If you're feeling sick to your stomach right now, you should be. Because what I'm about to tell you next will show you just how far a parent can fall when power becomes more important than love. The question is, are you brave enough to hear how a human being survived 6 years in hell? And more importantly, will you share this story to make sure it never happens again? July 18, 2022. 6 years, 1 month, and 3 days after Noura's disappearance. Yasser Al-Mabrouk's luxury villa on Palm Jumeirah was the last place anyone expected to find a missing princess. The marble floors, Italian chandeliers, and infinity pool overlooking the Arabian Gulf projected wealth and success. Below ground, however, a different story was about to be revealed. It started with a faulty electrical circuit in the kitchen. A simple malfunction that sparked a fire, filling the villa with toxic smoke. What should have been a routine house fire would become one of Dubai's most shocking discoveries. Dubai Civil Defense firefighters arrived within minutes. The blaze spread quickly through the villa's expensive wooden panels and imported furnishings. As crews worked to contain the flames, thermal imaging cameras detected an unusual heat signature in the basement. "We thought it was an industrial freezer," Fire Captain Ahmed Al-Mansouri later told investigators. The steel panels, the ventilation system, everything looked like a standard commercial unit you'd find in a high-end restaurant. But when they forced open the steel door to check for electrical hazards, they found something that would haunt them forever. A woman stumbled out, coughing violently from the smoke that had seeped into her prison. She was emaciated, her skin bleached white from years without sunlight. Her hair, once long and lustrous, hung in thin, brittle strands. She weighed barely 40 kilograms, less than a healthy 12-year-old child. The firefighters initially thought they had found a kidnapping victim. But when the woman whispered her name in Arabic, everything changed. "Ana Sheikha Noura," she said. "Please, don't send me back." Captain Al-Mansuri recognized the name immediately. Every first responder in Dubai knew about the missing royal from 2016. But she was supposed to be traveling abroad, living a quiet life away from public scrutiny. Instead, she had been living 6 feet below one of Dubai's most exclusive neighborhoods, forgotten by the world but never forgotten by the people who put her there. The discovery sent shockwaves through Dubai's power structure. Within hours, the story was suppressed from local media. International outlets were told it was a case of mistaken identity. But the truth had already started leaking out. And that truth was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. What investigators found inside Noura's prison would make hardened detectives weep. The fake freezer measured exactly 8 feet by 10 feet, smaller than most people's bathrooms. The walls were lined with industrial insulation to muffle sound and maintain temperature control. A single LED light strip, connected to a timer, provided 4 hours of illumination per day. The rest of the time, Noura lived in complete darkness. A twin-sized mattress was shoved against one wall, thin and stained from years of use. Next to it sat a small chemical toilet, the kind used in camping trailers. The smell inside was overwhelming, a mixture of industrial disinfectant, human waste, and the metallic scent of recycled air, but what broke the investigators' hearts were the personal items that told the story of Noura's survival. A notebook, nearly filled with tiny handwriting in Arabic and English. Page after page of diary entries, countdown calendars, and repeated mantras. Some entries were hopeful: "I exist. I will not vanish. Someone will find me." Others revealed her desperation: "Time isn't real down here. The clock broke last year. I think it's still Ramadan but I can't be sure." One entry, dated approximately 3 years into her captivity, read, "They built me a tomb, but I refuse to die in it." Crates of canned food lined one wall: beans, vegetables, protein powder, and bottled water. Many containers bore custom stamps from Khalid's shipping company. The supplies weren't random, they had been carefully selected for long-term survival. Vitamins, electrolyte supplements, and basic medical supplies filled a metal cabinet. How had she survived mentally? The notebook revealed her coping mechanisms. She had created imaginary friends, held conversations with family members from her childhood, and developed elaborate mental exercises to keep her mind sharp. She sang quietly to herself, the same songs over and over until her voice became hoarse. Most heartbreaking were the walls themselves. Scratched into the metal panels were hundreds of tiny marks, not counting days, but counting moments of hope. Every scratch represented a time she chose to keep living instead of giving up. A narrow service hatch near the ceiling allowed her captors to deliver supplies without fully entering the space. Sometimes weekly, sometimes months apart, the hatch would open, and food would be lowered down. Occasionally, Yasser himself would enter, bringing antibiotics when she was sick, threatening her when she asked about the outside world. "The world above thinks you're gone," he told her repeatedly. "No one is looking for you anymore." But Noura never stopped believing that someday, somehow, she would be found. The question that should be burning in your mind right now is, how does a human being maintain hope in conditions designed to crush the soul? And why haven't you shared this story yet to honor her incredible strength? Because what happened next proves that truth has a way of surfacing, even when powerful people try to bury it. The discovery of Noura exposed a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of Dubai's business elite. Yasser al-Mabrouk wasn't just a loyal employee, he was Khalid al-Hamdan's personal problem solver. For 2 decades, he had handled the family's most sensitive issues. Labor disputes that needed to disappear. Business rivals who required persuasion. Government officials who needed convincing. But hiding a royal daughter for 6 years was his most complex assignment yet. Investigators later reconstructed the conspiracy through financial records and testimony from terrified witnesses. The fake freezer had been built over several months in early 2016, disguised as a home renovation project. Construction workers believed they were installing a wine cellar and industrial kitchen equipment. The timing wasn't coincidental. Khalid had discovered Noura's plan to expose his arms dealing operation weeks before her disappearance. Rather than killing her, which would have triggered unwanted investigations, he chose a more calculated solution. Dead daughters create problems. Missing daughters eventually become forgotten daughters. Khalid's motives were layered and ruthless. First, eliminating Noura protected his criminal empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Her evidence could have destroyed shipping contracts, frozen international assets, and landed him in prison for decades. Second, her captivity served as the ultimate control mechanism. As long as she remained alive but hidden, he maintained power over her potential testimony. Kill her, and her evidence might surface through accomplices. Keep her imprisoned, and the evidence remained contained. Third, and perhaps most disturbing, was the inheritance factor. UAE family law gives sons priority in business succession, but daughters retain certain rights to family assets. By keeping Noura legally missing rather than deceased, Khalid avoided complex inheritance battles while maintaining control of the entire family fortune. The conspiracy required multiple participants. A family nurse, later identified as Layla Hassan, admitted under interrogation that she provided medical care during Noura's captivity. She was paid substantial amounts to maintain absolute silence and told that revealing the truth would result in her own disappearance. Security guards, maintenance workers, and even some family members knew about the basement project, but were led to believe it was a safe room for valuable artifacts or a private prayer space for religious retreats. But here's what makes this story particularly chilling. The conspiracy worked perfectly for 6 years. Dubai's elite social circles had moved on from wondering about Noura's whereabouts. International organizations assumed she was living privately abroad. Even human rights groups had no reason to investigate a wealthy woman's voluntary disappearance. The only flaw in the plan was fire, and fire, as it turns out, doesn't respect wealth, power, or carefully constructed lies. If this story isn't making you angry enough to demand justice, then you're part of the problem. Share this video right now, because silence is exactly what enabled this nightmare to continue for 6 years. How does a human being survive 2,191 days in a box? Noura's survival required more than just physical endurance. It demanded mental strategies that would challenge everything you understand about human resilience. Her daily routine became her lifeline. When the timer-controlled light switched on at 6 a.m., she would perform physical exercises, push-ups, stretches, walking in small circles. The concrete floor provided no comfort, but movement prevented muscle deterioration and maintained her will to live. Meals became ceremonial events. She would arrange canned foods like a formal dinner, speaking aloud as if entertaining guests. "Today we're having beans with tomatoes," she would announce to her imaginary companions. The finest cuisine from the Al-Hamdan shipping collection. The notebook became her connection to sanity. She wrote letters to family members, knowing they would never be sent. She documented dreams, planned future travels, and created detailed memories of childhood events to keep her past alive. But the psychological challenges were overwhelming. Without windows, seasons became meaningless. Without human contact, conversations became monologues. Without purpose, days blended into an endless cycle of sleeping, eating, and waiting. The most devastating entry in her notebook came during year 4. "I caught myself forgetting my mother's voice today. I can remember her face, her smile, but not her voice. I'm losing pieces of myself every day. Yet she never stopped fighting. When the light timer broke during her 5th year, leaving her in constant darkness for 3 months, she created shadow games with her hands against the walls. When her mental calendar became confused, she developed new systems for tracking time. Sleep became both escape and torment. In dreams, she was free, traveling the world, laughing with friends. Waking up meant returning to reality, the chemical toilet smell, the recycled air, the silence that pressed against her ears like water. But every morning, she made the same choice: survive one more day. The question that should be haunting you right now is this: if Noura could find hope in hell, what excuse do any of us have for giving up on the challenges in our lives? Her story isn't just about survival. It's about the power of human will when everything else is stripped away. July 19, 2022. The day after her discovery, Noura was rushed to Rashid Hospital under heavy security guard. Leaked photographs showed a woman transformed by trauma. At 32, she looked decades older. Her weight had dropped to 40 kilograms, nearly half her healthy body weight. Years of artificial lighting had left her skin translucent and sensitive. Doctors discovered severe vitamin deficiencies, muscle atrophy, and psychological symptoms consistent with extreme long-term isolation. But even in the hospital, Noura wasn't safe from her family's control. Khalid Al-Hamdan arrived within hours, accompanied by lawyers and private security. The official family statement was carefully crafted: "Our beloved daughter has been found after years missing due to personal struggles. We ask the public for privacy and prayers during her recovery." No mention of imprisonment. No acknowledgement of family involvement. No apology for 6 years of torture. More disturbing was what happened to the other conspirators. Yasser Al-Mabrouk vanished within 24 hours of the fire. Dubai immigration records show no official departure, leading investigators to believe he fled by private boat to Iran. International arrest warrants were issued, but he was never found. The family nurse, Layla Hassan, disappeared 2 weeks later. Her apartment was cleaned out, her bank accounts closed, her phone disconnected. Family members in Jordan claimed they never heard from her again. Meanwhile, Khalid Al-Hamdan faced no legal consequences. Dubai prosecutors cited insufficient evidence and family privacy concerns in declining to press charges. Whispers about royal immunity and private financial settlements circulated among legal circles, but nothing was ever confirmed. The most troubling development was Noura's own second disappearance. After 6 weeks in the hospital, she was quietly discharged to an undisclosed location. Journalists searching for her tracked leads to London, then Stockholm, then nothing. Human rights organizations attempted to contact her through intermediaries but received no response. By early 2023, Sheikha Noura bint Khalid Al-Hamdan had vanished again, this time, hopefully by her own choice. Some reports suggest she was granted asylum by a Scandinavian country. Others claim she's living under protection somewhere in North America. Her current location remains unknown, and perhaps that's exactly how she wants it. Because sometimes, the only way to truly escape a prison is to make yourself unfindable by the people who built it. What can we learn from Noura's nightmare that might prevent future tragedies? First, wealth and status don't protect anyone from family abuse. Behind the marble facades and designer clothes, domestic violence exists at every socio-economic level. The difference is that wealthy abusers have more resources to hide their crimes and silence their victims. Second, institutional silence enables horror. When police, media, and government agencies choose not to investigate private family matters, they become complicit in abuse. Noura's disappearance was ignored because wealthy families are assumed to handle their own problems. Third, never underestimate human resilience. Noura's survival proves that hope can exist even in the darkest circumstances. Her daily choice to keep living, to maintain her sanity, to believe in eventual rescue, these decisions saved her life when everything else failed. Fourth, speaking truth to power always carries risks, but silence carries greater risks. Noura's attempt to expose her father's criminal empire led to her imprisonment, but her silence would have allowed more weapons to flow through conflict zones, potentially killing thousands. Finally, justice isn't always served through legal systems. Sometimes, survival itself becomes victory. Noura may never see her father prosecuted, but she escaped his control. She may never receive public acknowledgement of her suffering, but she reclaimed her freedom. Today, somewhere in the world, Sheikha Noura is breathing free air, making her own choices, living on her own terms. After 6 years in hell, that might be the greatest justice of all. But here's what should keep you awake tonight: how many other Nouras are hidden in basements, locked in rooms, silenced by families who value reputation over human dignity. If you've watched this far without subscribing, you're telling me that stories like this don't matter to you. You're saying that survivors' voices aren't worth a simple click. So prove me wrong. Subscribe now, share this story, and make sure the voiceless are finally heard. Because Noura survived 6 years of silence so her story could be told. The least you can do is help her voice reach the people who need to hear it. Remember to like this video if it opened your eyes to the hidden horrors behind wealth and privilege. Share it with someone who needs to understand that family abuse exists at every level of society. And subscribe to Whispered Crimes for more true stories that reveal the darkness hiding behind closed doors. What other untold stories of survival do you want us to investigate? Leave your suggestions in the comments below, because every voice deserves to be heard.